If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning, and welcome to the March the 15th edition of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with today's show, you can dial this number, 516-453-9921. You may press the number 1 button, and when you do that, it will enable you to speak with Mr. Fuller, to ask your questions, or to give a quick VGQ. We do ask that you make it brief so that Mr. Fuller can answer as many questions as he can. So please be brief with that and be mindful. Let's see, what else? Yes, and you can also contact the show by my Gmail account. That is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. I must tell you, as I do every week, that when you do that, the Gmail will not necessarily be read on that particular day, but at some point in time it will be read. So just keep that in mind, because we are backed up on the Gmails. So just keep that in mind. Also, you can join the chat room, and all you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to go on the little button that says shows, and you want the Produce Justice Show, click on that, and then what will come up is a little button where you can join the chat room and get in the chat and see what's going on with the chat. And I'm pretty sure you'll be very pleased with a lot of the information that you can get on the chat. I want to bring this up. First of all, let me say good morning to you, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
And how are you today?
I'm still learning.
All right, you're still learning. It has come to my attention, and also through my personal observation, Mr. Fuller says the exact same thing on every show. At the beginning of every show that I've had with Mr. Fuller, and in the book that he has written, you know it by heart, but if you don't, this simply says if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. A lot of people take that lightly or don't think about it at all, period. They just don't. It's been my observation of that. Well, I'll just say most people that I've come in contact with. And usually, I can tell that by the questions that are asked almost every week, the same questions, and somehow in different ways. You will hear Mr. Fuller use the term logic, cause and effect. And he gives examples of that. But you have to really think about things, the cause and effect of things. And I bring that up because I checked out a movie. And the movie is called Judas and the Black Messiah. Now, most of us that are in a range that are not over 70 years old have lived through this particular period about Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers, and Bobby Seale, and so forth. And when I observed the movie, is one of the things that's on my personal movie list, you can glean some information from that movie. And in particular, came into play everything that Mr. Fuller has been talking about since I've known him. It's demonstrated in this movie. If you want a demonstration of how things white supremacy works, what it is and how it works. Everything else that you understand will only confuse you. I'm saying that if you observe this movie, that you can actually see the depths of the enemy that we are facing. Mr. Fuller, before we get started on today's show, have you ever seen or heard of the movie Judas and the Black Messiah?
No.
Okay. I want to make a suggestion that your people have you to look at that, and I would be interested in what you would have to say about that if you say anything at all about that. But so far you haven't.
I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All righty, so let's go on with today's show. I'm going to go right through the phone lines this morning, and I'm going to go down to Ray. Ray, I'm going to get you on here with your question for Mr. Fuller. Let me get you in here. There you go, Ray. I think I got you in. Yeah. Ray, are you there?
Yes,
okay,
I'm here. Good morning, gentlemen.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay. Go ahead, Ray.
All right, I have two questions. Mr. Fuller, do you have any compensatory thoughts this morning about it being the Ides of March?
About what?
The Ides
of March?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. All right, my second question, Mr. Fuller, is sparring ever constructive if its intent and result leads all victims to become more aware of the system of white supremacy?
Should the victims of white supremacy become more aware of the system of white supremacy?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's what it means. It's racism, which means mistreatment, just another form of mistreatment. It's all forms of mistreatment throughout the known universe among people and among creatures. Mistreatment. That's the key. The system of white supremacy is a system of mistreatment. It mistreats people. It's very efficient when it comes to producing material things. But when it comes to getting people to interact with each other in a maximum quality relationship, that produces constructive results, that solves problems in a constructive manner, it's a failure because it's designed to deliberately mistreat people in the process of producing things. It worships things and does very well at doing it, at producing things to worship that everybody enjoys. But when, as a system of humanitarianism, it's not even designed for that, because it's designed to mistreat people of color, deliberately designed to do that. That's why it's called white supremacy. And so, therefore, it should be opposed and replaced with a system of justice, which theoretically would be guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. You got that word mistreatment again. You guarantee that no person is mistreated, regardless of what you're doing, how you're doing it. And the second thing, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, neither one of these things exists anywhere in the known universe. There's no government that produces this. But the biggest impediment, the biggest stumbling block in producing justice is the system of white supremacy. You can't have white supremacy and justice on the same planet at the same time. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. All righty. All righty, Ray from Dallas, thank you very much. To the chatters, constructive action items, I'm looking for your report that you normally place up of last week's show. And for all the chatters, Jacoby 2K2, B-Sam 721, Helen B 69, and Still Learning, it just jumped in there. We started off today's program about Judas and the Black Messiah. Check that out if you haven't already, and your thoughts on that. Send it around. What Mr. Fuller has always said at the beginning of his book and of each program that I've been on about if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. And Stefan in Eastern Texas. Let me see if I can get you up in here. Gotcha.
Yeah,
all right,
peace and blessings. Yes, sir. Peace and blessings to you and Mr. Neely Fuller. Hey, this is your servant, the world's top cop. I got a question for Mr. Neely Fuller. And after he responds, I would like to give a quick solution to the question that I'm going to give you that's going to put an end to it. So, Mr. Neely Fuller, this question I have for you is very important for your listeners. Now, if you were pulled over on traffic and you are encountering a race soldier, and when he comes to you on traffic, he tells you your driver's license is in the glove compartment, and he wants you to reach in your glove compartment to get your license. Now, he has his hands on his gun, and he's probably going to shoot you. What will you do, sir?
You ask a question, or you give information if you have any type of knife or anything that may look like a weapon. If your cell phone is in there, or you have some type of tool in there that might catch the person's eye, that might look like it might be a tool that might make death or injury to a person. If you know that you have something in your glove compartment, it might be a wrench or a screwdriver, something that shines kind of in semi-darkness. It may look like a gun. You will say, well, first of all, sir, can I ask you, give you some information? I have in my glove compartment, I have a couple of wrenches, and I have a drilling tool that's got a handle on it, and the handle kind of looks like a gun. So, is there any way that I can get to my driver's license and my registration without any type of misunderstanding about whether or not I have a weapon in this glove compartment? And is there any way that you could probably, I'll give you permission to open it yourself. And I'll keep my hands here on the steering wheel. If I move them, then you can do whatever you think has to be done, that I might be making some move. But if there's any way that I can open this glove compartment, because I don't want any misunderstanding where I'll be shot, because I can see how, I might even think that there is a weapon there, if I'm allowed to talk that much. But all the time I'll have my hands on the steering wheel, or I will even ask the officer, I'm going to be extra careful, where do you want my hands to be the whole time you're talking to me? So that if I move them, I'll have the understanding if I move my hands any kind of way off of the steering wheel, I will be shot. Because it's a lot of that type of thing that goes on, officer. You may have heard something about it yourself. In the last few years, where people actually do this type of thing. I have no such intentions of doing that. If you may allow to just have this conversation with you. And so it's up to the person to make up their minds what they're going to tell you. They'll say, no, I just want you to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but I want you to take your right hand and open that glove compartment like I told you. Well, now you've already, told him what you suggested, but if he doesn't want to listen, you have to obey what the person said. Now, he might jump back and say, gun. That's the technique when they intend to kill you. See, all of a sudden, he just jumps back, and the camera on his dashboard in the car behind you will pick him up and hear him say, gun, and he jumps back, and pop, 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 pop. 7 shots right quick, and you're dead.
Okay,
but you can expect that. But I'm giving the answer. You can expect that to happen because we are in a war, and there are a lot of race soldiers out there with the intention of killing as many people of color as they possibly can if they can get away with it. They're not police officers. Don't mix them up. A police officer will do the correct thing every time. There are a lot of them who will do the correct thing and who are very reasonable. But there are some implants there that they even brag about. You see it on the news. Yeah, we got our people everywhere. We're Nazis. I mean, we're everywhere. We're in every kind of uniform, particularly the uniforms of authority, where we can cause instant death. So in the textbook, they're called race soldiers. But you have to obey because we are in a war. In a war, a soldier pulls you over, and soldiers don't second guess. I've been in the Army and whatnot, and it's all about, hey, you're going to be dead. You think that this is some kind of game. You're going to be dead. All right?
Okay, so if I can quickly say, and then thank you for your answer. The best solution, if anyone is going to be encountering a race soldier from here on, this is going to be the greatest solution. The greatest solution is to have something that's greater than a camera. It's a expert witness that you can have contact with 24/7 on the phone, live. It can guide you. Now, Mr. Neely Fuller gave you excellent examples, but not everybody knows this. And matter of fact, it can better save even his life to come out, and that's with CPIIA. And if anybody wants better assistance, just call the number 832-558-6956 to give you the best solution to come out of every traffic stop when you're dealing with the race soldier. You won't even have to talk with them. You give it up to the experts to handle the situation with you and to document everything for the police department, for the courts, and to get your justice correctly for you and your family, and you can come out of a traffic stop alive. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. From the chat room, Helen B. had a suggestion. What do you think? It's like this. It says, when you, wait a minute, Helen, let me get this straight. She says, get a clear envelope and stick it on the dash board of your car, I'm presuming with your driver's license and registration in it. And when you exit the car, put the envelope in the glove compartment. That might be one way to do it. I imagine there are many ways. Constructive action says obtain a clear envelope to place on the dashboard of your vehicle for your license, insurance, and registration for law enforcement. The chatters are on it. The chatters are on it. Thank you, chat room people. Marcus from Long Beach. See if I can get you in here. Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question this morning is, Mr. Fuller, could you explain why it is important for the white supremacists to keep conflict always brewing between the black male and the black female?
Because if black males and black females are in harmony with each other, that weakens the system of white supremacy. One of the first things the white supremacists did said, we got to make that black male and that black female, we got to make them go at war with each other all the time. We can't have them in any kind of harmonious situation. That becomes a team, and that's bad for business. Now, they can be in harmony under our tutelage, but if they're in harmony on their own, then they work best together, and their offspring come up working best, as it is now. Anywhere that the white supremacists have really bore down hard black males and black females don't get along at all in the manner in which they should. And I mean, some of the best relationships are nowhere what they should be. And the textbook for victims of racism calls it the quality relationship. We don't have quality relationships. The white supremacists will not allow it. So it's going to be a lot of glitches between black male and black female because the white supremacist system simply cannot allow harmony. I mean, when they got that, that's deadly to the system of white supremacy. Black male, black female, getting along in harmony, ironing out their differences in a quiet, methodical manner, rather than screaming and yelling and cursing at each other, and when it comes to child care and all like that, all that back and forth, and it finally winds up in a bloody mess. That the white supremacists love that. Okay, some of the most prevalent calls, from what I've heard, to the police department is what they call domestic violence. There's nothing domestic about it. I mean, it's violence. That's why the code says it's got to be agreed upon. That's number one, between every black male and every black female. When they first meet each other, that there will be conversations, no arguments. That's to start with. They will have conversations. And if it works out that the conversation says, well, we're just, we're not compatible with each other, then it's just a handshake agreement. So, it's not working out. It's got to be that way. And it's got to be that way from day one, when everything is all lovey-dovey. That's the time to do it, not when an argument starts. I mean, because you must agree. We're not going to have arguments, not to say anything about fights. That's absolutely prohibited, talking about violence. I mean, between me and you, not ever, under any circumstance. Okay? No, that's not happening. Both parties have to agree to that. Like the code book says, black male, black female, the black female, because she's usually the one who's getting hit, makes it very clear. First time, last time. That's the slogan. Now, what does that mean? The first time you hit me, that's the last time you hit me, because it's not going to be a second time, because we are finished. Serious. Forever. I mean, no making up, no kissing, making up, and this is a mistake, I lost my temper. No. That doesn't happen not one time. And you let the person know that before you even get started into the relationship. Mm-hmm. It's not supposed to be any violence. Now, we're not getting together for this to end up in violence, period. Mm-hmm. Period. No exceptions. I'm not going to do any hitting on you, and you don't hit me. And the first time you lose your temper, or I lose my temper, and somebody gets hit, it's an announcement that this so-called relationship is over forever. No coming back, it happens on Saturday night and you come back Monday. No, that's what it means, and we'll get that straight right out the gate. Now, does that work? Yes, because a young lady told me that Neely Fuller, back in the 1950s. And I said, I just met you, I'm not even thinking about nothing like that. But she said that was her rule. She had a code. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. Because later on I did get angry about something. But she just looked at me as if to say, now you understand the agreement. This was an agreement that you made with me. Because back then, and even today, I mean, it's like you got a license to start violence. I mean, this is my woman. and I'm her man, and ain't nobody else got nothing to do with it and all. Yeah, but you too have something to do with each other, and that's rock solid code. First time, last time. Now I coined that phrase after that because I said that's a code. That's I don't think anybody. It's very simple, and you get that straight right from the beginning. Now you can argue and blow up and all like that, shout, voices get loud. That's going to happen. That goes with the territory. But it doesn't get violent at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Oh.
Because it doesn't work. That's why.
Yes, sir. All righty. Thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you very much. Question from Angelica says this, Mr. Fuller. He says, what is the best way to survive a recession, a world war, as a single black man with parents and siblings as a care unit?
Try to make that care unit as helpful as it possibly can be. Try to make it as harmonious as you can, because that's your first step toward getting anything done that will help you. You've got to get along with the people, and if you don't have that kind of care unit, you have one that's fabricated, one that's made up. I mean, co-workers and whatnot. If you're a person who has no quote-unquote traditional family units of any kind or no connections, you're alone. Well, you try to form a network of people who you can help and people who will help you. I mean, somebody who will, but they can't put themselves in jeopardy. Nobody can do that. Because a person who is in jeopardy themselves is not able to help you. And I often give the illustration. I've been doing it for years. A person comes to you, and the person says, I got to have $150 right now. I'm in big trouble, but I got to have at least $150. Can you let me have $150? Person says, well, I can't let you have $150 without putting myself in jeopardy. And you're not ever supposed to do that, because if you can't help yourself, you can't help nobody else. So what you do, you say, but I can give you $50, but you'll have to get the $100 for someone else. And the person say, well, I don't want you to give me nothing. I'm going to give it back. I mean, look, the person is in trouble. Most likely you're not going to get it back. That's the way black people usually operate. All right. Mm-hmm. So the code says you don't give them, you don't loan them any more than you can afford to give them. That way you don't fall out with the person either. If the person promised they were going to pay you, now they're dodging you all the time. All right? You don't want a situation like that.
No, sir.
You want a quality relationship.
Okay.
So, in answer to the question, yes. Foreign people, I mean, if a person say, well, I can't give you any money at all. I mean, but I will. I drive by your area every day. So what is your problem? And you say, well, I need to get to this place and another. Say, well, I drive near that place, so I will drop you off. I'll pick you up and drop you off. For the next 2 weeks, 7 o'clock in the morning. Say, yeah, that's what I need. Yeah. And so you do that. Why? Because you can, without hurting yourself.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you very much. Let's break it here. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show, the CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, dial 516-453-9921. And you can become in contact with the show. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. You can also join the chatters in the chat room. Just go to blogtalkradio.com and you want to click on where it says programs, and you want to get the Produced Justice show, click on that bad boy. And then the chat icon will come up, and you can join the chat room and get in there. Get in there and get involved in the conversation today. I was asking some of the chatters even before they got on. A question came up about, I had a question about Judas and the Black Messiah. In reference to, it made me think of what Mr. Fuller says on every program that I have ever heard him been on, even not on this particular platform network, but he says it at the beginning of this program, at the beginning of the book. You know it. If you don't understand, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism in parentheses, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And I shared with the audience that it has been, of my opinion, only substantiated by my observation, by the questions that come in and by people that I have spoken to, that statement goes over people's head because they really don't understand. But I think by seeing this movie, Judas and the Black Messiah points out everything in that statement that I read that goes on using logic, cause and effect. It's right there. But you know how our people are. Anyway, let me go ahead on. From the chat room, or rather from the Gmails, this is Mr. Mann. He says this. How does a non-white person counter racism on the job? Canada was ranked as the top racist country in the world during the hiring process. How do I successfully, Mr. Fuller, how do I successfully argue that I never received a pay raise due to racism without being fired?
Oh, you always stay in the question lane. I say that about just about every situation. You just ask for an audience with someone who is able to give you the raise, and you go in and say that you would like to have a talk with the person who is in the position of power over your finances. And when you ask for that audience, you go in and ask about the duties. You go over the duties that you perform. You and put it in the form of a question. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I fulfill the requirements of this job that I've had for some time? And let the person answer. And then you say, well, in ordinary situations, do you think that it's about time for this to call for a raise or a promotion or whatever, according to the record that I have here, sir or ma'am? Always be polite, always be courteous. You don't mention race. You don't ever mention race on the job unless someone else mentions it. Once that happens, then you open the door. You can open the floodgates in if somebody else brings it up, because you want to always be in position to say, I didn't say anything about race until it was mentioned to me in connection with this job. So once something was said to me, it is my duty to respond and talk about race. Otherwise, that's discourteous. Also, it's a dereliction of duty because it has to do with the job. But I didn't say it had anything to do with the job. Someone else said it. See, you always go in, you substitute the word race or anything connected with race. You go in and say, is this the justice thing to do? You're trying to produce a product called justice. Because the only purpose for getting rid of, here's the logic, the only purpose for getting rid of racism is to replace it under the law of compensation with something better. And that something better than racism is justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. So when you walk in and ask for that raise, you're asking for constructive help. And see what they have to say. Do they believe in justice? Do they believe that what you have been doing calls for a raise or promotions? And by what? By comparison with what other people get in other institutions who are doing the same thing or something similar to it. You can make comparisons. Because the law of compensation is all about comparisons. The law of justice is all about making comparisons.
Okay. All righty. Let me do this here, Mr. Fuller. Before I get to you, Swa, I got you covered. Toussaint, hang on. John in Houston, hang on. Let's see here. This is from Nizan Niel. Says this, Mr. Fuller. He says, Mr. Fuller, the question is sex just as powerful as the system of white supremacy, or is it second? Please ask him to elaborate, providing an example. Because on some broadcasts, he says it is equally powerful to the system of white supremacy, and on other broadcasts, he says it is the second most powerful force on the planet.
Nothing is more powerful than the system of white supremacy to a person who's classified as non-white. Nothing. Nothing. No religion. Because the system of white supremacy is the supreme religion when it comes to people who are non-white. And that's been proven. That's not Neely Fuller talking. That's evidence. Because people say that they have this religion, that they got color in their skin, this religion, that religion. The white supremacists come along and say, I'm a white person in the system of white supremacy, and you're non-white, and I don't care what your religion is. You better do what I say. And so far, just about every black person who has challenged that has failed that challenge. Because the white supremacists said, hey, you can have any kind of religion you want to among yourselves. That's why we even have separate churches. I mean, we don't want y'all hanging around. I mean, when we are in touch with God, I mean, y'all we don't need you for anything. We don't need not one of your black preachers, because none of them know half as much what we know about God. We're close to God. You all are nothing. That's the white supremacist doctrine. You see, you're a bunch of black people out of the jungle. You think you know something about God. You got to be kidding. You stupid people. I mean, God is with us in any religion. And we prove it by kicking you from post to post. And you can call on all the gods you want. They ain't going to help you from me, because I've been adorned. I've been legislated by God to nominate you. Don't you read your good books? I mean, I print the books for you to read and preach about. You don't even know how to print nothing. None of you. Just dumb selves. Get back in the jungle. Climb back in the trees.
Okay. All righty. Let me see here. Let me say this, and then I'm going to come to you, Swa. Roland Randolph, that's a good question, and I'll try to work that in, okay? Don't hold me to it. Try to work that in. Out in L.A., my man, Swa. He's there. Good morning, sir. Wait a minute. There you go. Good morning, sir.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., my question is in reference to a word on page 20 of the word guide.
Page 20?
And the word is attraction enhancers / repulsion enhancers.
Wait a minute, page 20.
Page 20. of the Word Guide.
Okay, where was this while now?
And the word is,
attraction. Where it says attraction, enhancers. Okay, Mr.
What
Fuller,
about
you
it?
see it?
Yeah, Mr. Neely Fuller, would it be what would be the constructive results, or would there be any if non-white people attempted to eliminate using attraction enhancers / repulsion enhancers?
Your question is what?
What would the constructive results be if non-white people stopped using repulsion enhancers? Or would there be any constructive results?
Suppression enhancers.
Yes. You have it on page 20. This is
repulsion.
Yes.
Repulsion enhancers. Okay, use these terms to apply to anything added to the body of a person, including the hands, hair, etc., that is apparently intended to produce attention from other persons for reasons that may or may not be favorable to that person, and or for reasons that may or may not be of constructive value to any person. In other words, don't attract attention to yourself unless you have a constructive reason to do so. That's a simple way of putting it. Don't do anything to attract attention to yourself unless you have a constructive reason to do so, and you expect to get a constructive result from what you have added to yourself. Attractive enhancers. That's why that's in the Word Guide. Whom are you trying to attract? For what reason? When you're sitting in front of the mirror, you're putting on some lipstick. Okay, who do you want to look at that lipstick, and what do you think the result's going to be? Or you put on a certain type of hat. Or you get in the barber's chair or the beauty salon and you say, I want this and I want that and I want the other. When you walk out of there, if you have the intention of attracting attention, what's going to be the result of you attracting attention to yourself? Every black person particularly, since we are really into, we like attention, you know, we have to admit to that. Well, what's going to be the result of you getting attention, and from whom? I mean, who's going to walk up and give you something on the basis of how you look when you did something that attracted attention? Who's going to get off the bus and run down the street because they saw you from the bus window and walk up and give you $1 million on account of you attracted their attention? Now, that's kind of a wild way of illustrating what I'm talking about, but I hope that everybody gets the point. Don't do anything to attract anybody's attention without you thinking in advance whose attention that I'm trying to get and what's going to be the constructive result when I get that attention. Every black person on the planet who does anything, whether it's clothes, whether it's cosmetics, whether it's a hairdo, whether it's a new hat, whose attention are you trying to attract? And what do you expect the constructive result to be? If you put your pants down, around your ankles, and get on the bus, whose attention are you trying to attract? And what's going to be the result? You should think about that, since you deliberately did that to attract attention. And we like a lot of attention. Somebody give me attention. We come into the world wanting attention. Everybody wants attention. Black people, white people, squirrels. But even a squirrel trying to attract attention, if it comes up to you when you're sitting on the park bench, that squirrel will sit on his hind legs maybe. Put on a little performance. Why? That squirrel expects to get something. All right? what do you expect to get when you go through all these changes to attract somebody's attention? Whether it's by something you're wearing or something that you're saying or the way that you're acting on the bus. You got everybody's attention on the bus. You're sitting on the back seat. So you start doing a dance or what? Get up and start dancing in the aisle. You're trying to attract attention. Okay. You got any talent scouts on the bus? I mean, you know what you're doing it for. You know better than anybody else. And is it going to work out to your favor? That's the main thing. Is it going to have a constructive result for you?
Yes, sir. Constructive results. All righty. Swa, thank you so much. I know you're in the chat room. I don't have to tell you not to be a stranger because you own it. Mr. Fuller, let me see here. A question came up in the chat room. It says, Mr. Fuller, how can we counter white supremacy if we have to utilize tools produced in the system of white supremacy, i.e., technology, weapons, food, etc.? How can we counter white supremacy if we have to utilize tools and products that were produced in the system of white supremacy?
Oh, by talking about justice. It's not the things themselves. A pair of pliers is a pair of pliers. You can use it to help support white supremacy, or you can use a pair of pliers to help to dismantle it. Depending on what you're going to use it for. Everything around you is a tool. The air, everything. The air is a tool. Your choices of how you spend money. You get money from the white supremacists if you're black. It's not any money that's worth anything that black people produce. Not when it comes to comparison with money that white people say is real money. All right? That stuff that black people produce all over the world, they'll say we got our king's picture on it and all like that. But the white supremacists can simply look at it and say, that stuff's not worth nothing. It's a pretty picture on it. You people got a lot of artists who can really draw. But that picture of that king on your money, it don't compare nowhere with a white king. Any money. Compare your money with your black self with any money that's got a white person's picture on the front of it. Even you black people would rather have that money that's got white people's pictures on it, even if those white people whose pictures are on the money were slave owners. You worship that. Get on TV and flash it if you got it. Talking about how much of it you love, how much of it you want. But you don't have your black face on there. Because you know if there's a black face on there, it ain't worth nothing. Nowhere on the planet compared to any money with a white face on it. And I don't have to preach it to you, you know that. See, we have to understand where we are. We're prisoners of war. That war has never been over. So if you think of yourself as a prisoner of war, you got it all right there as far as making an assessment of what black people's status is on planet Earth in the year 20 everywhere. Prisoners of war, that's what you're looking at. And what's your prison uniform? The color of your skin.
The color.
Everybody recognizes that.
Okay. John, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have Mr. Fuller talk about his book. By the way, I forgot to mention that when you call this number, 516-453-9921, I don't recall telling you that. Make sure if you have a comment. Yeah, I guess I did say that. But anyway, make sure that if you have a question or comment, please press the number 1 button and wait until I can cue you in. All right, Mr. Fuller, it's book time. Time for you to talk about your book, so take it away.
Well, somebody called in and they read from a part of it, so that's what the book is really all about. It's 2 volumes. One is a word guide, and the other is a basic volume. And so we read from the word guide this morning. Mm-hmm. But it's basically the same book. I just couldn't get it all within 2 covers rather than 4. I don't think part of the code is everybody who writes books throughout the world should just write one book for each problem. The race problem is one problem. So we shouldn't have a whole lot of scattered books that we have to chase down in every library everywhere and try to go overseas and dig something up out of some obscure library there. I guess that'll never be done, but it ought to be done. You know, you should be able to reach up on a shelf and say, what's the problem? Just like an auto manual. You know, you have a particular brand of auto, of car, and so everything about that car should be in one book. Where it was manufactured, when, and all like that, what the parts are, how to get the parts, everything. You know, you reach and get one manual off the shelf for that particular car. So if you have a race problem, I would like to see my books be a part of it, the solutions to it. Because first of all, you cite what the problem is, if it is a problem, if that's what the book is about. The first part of it should be what the problem is and how it came to be, everything about it, everything. And then the next part should be what to do about it as an individual person, because you're not 2 people or 3 people or a gang of people. You're one person. So that's what I'm trying to do about what the individual person can do about it. But I couldn't get it in one volume. I tried to give an overview of what the problem is, but that's been cited by many, many authors. But there are not enough books telling you what to do, and that's why I wrote this one. What to do on a daily basis, wherever you happen to be on the planet, if you've got color in your skin, what to say and what not to say and how to say it in the English language. Now, if you're in another language, you have to do a translation. But these are the kind of books that should be written from now on. Books that solve problems. So this is about solving the race problem. I wrote this once I got into it. I didn't start out doing that, but I say, I'm not going to just try to add to another book and say I'm making a contribution. In fact, I detest that word when it comes to the race problem. I'm not trying to make a contribution. I'm trying to solve this thing. I'm talking about solutions, nothing but. So I call it the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Thought, speech, action. Because you think before you speak. And then you also think before you act. So the sequence is think about a problem, then speak about it like I'm doing now, and then make suggestions about what action to take. And that's what the textbook for victims of white supremacy is designed to do. You can get it by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com, and you'll see them come up on the screen. And that last title that I gave you, the book has 3 titles, actually, try to cover everything. But the title at the bottom of the book, Textbook Workbook for Thought, Speech, and or Action for Victims of Racism, White Supremacy. Racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. There's no other form of racism other than white supremacy, according to what I have written. And I think I can stand by in truth and prove it to a person who is going to use logic.
Yes, sir.
And evidence.
All right.
Go to producejustice.com.
All right, producejustice.com. And speaking of that, by the way, I did go to the website this morning, and for those of you who are new to this program, Mr. Fuller has a Facebook page, and you can get the Facebook page by going to producejustice.com, and there is a little space that you can click on that, and you're connected. And that is the official words of Neely Fuller. That was put in because there was some situations that presented problems or potential problems, or let's just call it what it is, confusion. That Neely Fuller said this and that Neely Fuller said that. It was, some of it was getting mixed up, and so this was told to Mr. Fuller and I a couple of weeks ago that now he has an official page. Official. This is what it is. It's not from anybody else but him. And you can get it by going to producejustice.com. We made it easy for you. Just click on that bad boy and you're there. You can get all the information right there. As a matter of fact, when I was on it this morning, and thank you, producers, they have all of Mr. Fuller's, that I could see, quite a few shows that Mr. Fuller does with the Carl Nelson Show on WOL out of Washington, D.C., 1450 on the AM dial, and 95 point, what, Mr. Fuller, on FM?
95.9, I believe.
95.9 on FM dial, yeah. And whenever Mr. Fuller is on, it'll be up on our site where we can enjoy Mr. Fuller again for about 2 hours. Usually it's from 5 to 7 p.m. Generally, I think it's been on a Thursday when he's been on. It may be another day, but anyway, it's usually on Thursday, the Carl Nelson Show on that. Now, some people don't like for me to do that. I don't know why. I mean, Mr. Fuller speaks. You want to hear what Mr. Fuller has to say. I want to hear what Mr. Fuller has to say. I think others do too. But anyway, you can get that information as well as all the books and materials, past shows, everything right there at producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, we have 2 minutes to go in this first section. Tucson, I'm glad you called back, so I'm going to get to you. John, I'm going to get to you. So, Mr. Fuller, I'm going to give you about a minute and a half before we have to close it out to go into the second hour. So go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
This is just something I thought of this morning, so I jotted it down. Under the questions, inferior people, question mark. Next statement, or a question rather, what to do, question mark. Inferior people, question mark, what to do, question mark. It's 2 questions and 1 answer, according to the code, logically speaking. When you declare that people are inferior, any person is inferior for whatever reason, what do you do? What do you say? What do you do with a person that you have really stood back and looked at and say, you know what, that person is inferior? A lot of white people say that about black people. We are inferior people. And a big argument goes on for hours and hours about whether black people are inferior or not. And people haul out the books and start proving this and proving that and talking about genetics in detail. So it just comes down to, like everything else, after all the arguments come and go, what's the bottom line? What do you do if everybody agrees that black people are inferior or any people are inferior to other people? And the code says after you brainstorm it for 50 days or 50 years, produce and practice justice. That's what you do with inferior people. And what is justice again? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, including inferior people. Guarantee that they are not mistreated. You say, yeah, but they are inferior. You can't mistreat them. Babies are inferior. How about that? Every last one of them. A newborn baby is inferior. Inferior to what? I mean, they can't drive a bus. I mean, they can't build a house. All they can do is make a lot of noise and ask for help. So you can say that all babies are inferior. So what do you do with babies? What do you do with babies? They need help the most, so you give it to them. And you don't mistreat babies. That's what you do. So we can sell this thing this morning. I mean, hey, we can sell this thing about inferior people forever. Just with that statement, produce and practice justice. That's what you do with inferior people.
Okay. And with that, our first hour concludes. So we thank you for listening to the first hour of the CRCS, the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller. If you have to go, hopefully we'll do better and see you next week. But if you're going to stay, hang on there because we got one more hour of the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Hang on. Alrighty, welcome back to the Counter-Racist Coach Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com and also on producejustice.com. And we thank you for your listenership. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, 516-453-9921 is the number. Make sure you press the number 1 button, and you will get in rotation, and you can ask Mr. Fuller your question. Please, ma'am, please, sir, please make it short so that Mr. Fuller can answer the question. If you are familiar with his technique, he uses lots of examples using logic, cause, and effect. Why? Because we're looking for a constructive result, and you will hear that all throughout this program, constructive result. You will hear logic, and you may even hear I don't know. Anyway, you can also contact the show by going to my address, which is 7mrbobby@gmail.com. That's my Gmail address, and you can ask your questions there. Generally, they will not be answered today. Generally. Sometimes something comes up and a space is in there and a question will be answered. But at some point in time, in the near future, it will be addressed. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to hit shows and hit the Produce Justice show, and that bad boy will come up, and there's a CHAT, chat room action. You get in there, hit that, and you're in there, and you can explore the conversations that are in there and get all the constructive results. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you missed last week, Constructive Action Items has a detailed list of what we discussed last week. So I thank Constructive Action Items to put up those things, and they stand in good standing as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go to John Houston. Then we'll come to you next to you, Toussaint. Okay, John Houston, wait a minute. Okay, technology. John Houston, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question? Good morning.
Grand Rising, gentlemen, and today is being the 3rd or the 15th of March. We've been told in history, the Ides of March refers to a supposed ancient story of the assassination or execution of Judas, being his Judas, in response to your reference of Judas and the Black Messiah this morning, Mr. Bobby.
Yes, sir.
And when you do, if you do, get a chance to see the movie They Live, the sunglasses reveal the hidden messages or the intention of what I'm going to describe as the system of white supremacy. So if you got that in your mind when you watch the movie They Live, it will give us, hopefully, going along the direction of fully understanding, as Neely Fuller Jr. said, the system of white supremacy so we can no longer be confused. My question for today is that I heard this on another show. I won't bring up this particular individual's name, but it's always something that's intrigued me. If the war between Russia and Ukraine is a conflict between the brown-eyed white man and the blue-eyed white man, does this get to the crux of the matter that I just heard Mr. Fuller talk about inferior, quote unquote, people. And I'd like to hold to listen to his response. And thank you for the time, my good brother, Mr. Bobby.
Now, what was that question again, sir? What was that question again?
The war currently between supposed Russia and Ukraine, is it between the brown-eyed white man versus the blue-eyed white man in the issue of inferiority versus superiority?
All righty. I got you on hold here. Okay. Mr. Fuller?
I don't think so. I think what it is, every now and then, white people have a dispute among themselves, a family dispute. Just like back on the plantation. One plantation owner would have a dispute with another plantation owner, and they would challenge each other to a duel. But that had nothing to do with the help. In other words, with the slaves. They just had a falling out about something. The slaves are just standing there looking out the window or over there in the cotton field looking up and say, you know, Master Charles is falling out with Mr. Butler down the road. And I think he called him a name or something, or he insulted his wife. So they challenged each other to a duel. I mean, one of them's going to be dead. They're up there, up under that big tree on the hill, and all the white folks just left to go watch it. And they're going to mark off 10 paces and turn and fire with those pistols they got. I mean, and so they took some of the help with them, I mean, to bring along the sandwiches and all like that, because killing is part of the white supremacist ideology of entertainment, okay? So the people who are going to be watching are going to be entertained, including some of the slaves. So it's basically the same thing here, a falling out among white people. That happens every now and then. But now, how do black people factor into that? They factor into it as an old African proverb. It could be, but it's an old saying. When elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. So black people are the grass. And you have some black people who are in the Ukraine. I saw them on TV, and they presented them as black people who are in the Ukraine, who are from Nigeria. And quite a few of them, a lot more than I thought, would be in the Ukraine. In the Ukraine, some Nigerians, yes, they're there. But they're kind of caught in the middle. They're trying to find a way out of there. And some of the white people are helping them out. But from what I understand from what was presented on TV, they're being turned back at some of the borders because they say, hey, we're letting white people in. Now, we got a dispute among ourselves, but you're all out of place in this, so find somewhere to go. I mean, but don't come here. I mean, we're not, hey, we're letting white people in here in this dispute between those white people over on the other side, but don't come here. I mean, you know, they had you over there, but we don't want any of you over here, so don't come here. Go back where you came from, if you ever came from any place. I don't know about that. I don't care either. Just get out of my face.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what that's all about. But basically, in answer to the question, it's just another dispute among. Yes, they have white people, even in the system of white supremacy, have fallen outs.
Right.
It's a criminal operation.
Right.
Crime
families do that.
The Corleones fall out with the Barzinas.
Right.
But that don't have nothing to do with the black people, except the black people riding around maybe benefiting from our fight. But we'll put them back in our place as soon as the fight, in their place, as soon as the fight is over.
Exactly. Every time.
Just like they did right after the so-called Civil War.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're killing each other. We're slaughtering each other. And some of you black people are kicking up your heels back there at the mansion. because ain't nobody around to whip you in place. But as soon as this thing is over, we white people who believe in white supremacy, we're going to shake hands, and we coming back to the plantation, and boy, I better not catch you sitting up there in my chair.
Maybe that's where the term business as usual comes. I don't know. Maybe.
Sure. It's all, they have shown that repeatedly. That's not just coming from Neely Fuller. They've shown that over and over again. They do a handshake thing, and then they come back and say, all right, all you black people been having a good time, you know, back here eating watermelon and eating our best chicken and sitting in our best chairs, and some of you wearing our clothes while we are out fighting, all right, each other. But the fun's all over now. Get back at us out there in that field.
Get back on them. Wow. Good point. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Toussaint, thank you for calling back. Let me see if I can get you in there. New York, New York. Yeah, wait a minute. Wait, there you go. There you go, Toussaint.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. I actually wanted to ask if it would be okay. I have two quick and concise questions. Let me know if I can only ask one.
Go ahead, real quick.
All right. So, Mr. Fuller, my first question is, I've read in the book, I'm sorry, I don't remember what page it was, but you said that all people in the known universe are either engaging in sexual play or reacting to someone who is at all times. Would you be able to elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
All people are what now? Slow
down. All people of the known universe are either engaging in sexual play
or
reacting to someone.
Or either in what?
Engaging in sexual play.
Yes.
Or reacting to someone who is at all times.
Or
Would
doing what now? I didn't catch that last part. Engaging in sex.
Or reacting.
Relaxing.
Reacting
to someone who is.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Everybody is. If you stop and think about it, logically speaking. I mean, a grandmother wants to know, who's this boy you met? She's not engaging in sex. I mean, you know, she's used to. That's how she became a grandmother. Okay? But she wants to know, she's got a 16-year-old now that she's taking care of for her daughter who has to work every day. All right? And the grandmother's on some farm somewhere, maybe, hypothetical situation, and she's got a granddaughter, and she wants to know, who is this fella? See, she's reacting to someone who is having sex. See, now, you're not supposed to be running around with these fellas. You're supposed to be down here going to school. And I don't want you dropping out of school and bringing no babies in here because I'm too old to take care of them. Okay? That's just one illustration. But it's all kinds of scenarios if you stop and think about it. You're reacting to someone who is having sex, either directly or indirectly, because people are having sex all over the place all the time, whether you know it or not. All those people you pass on the street, they're either having sex or they're getting ready to or they're thinking about it. That's what all that prancing around, dressing up is about. Wearing fancy dresses or getting a new hairdo or something. That's what, you know, how can I attract somebody sexually? That's what it's for.
Sure.
They're not trying to attract birds and squirrels. They're trying to attract another person. And what goes with that is sexual intercourse.
What was your second question, John? Toussaint, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Toussaint.
sir. All good. My second question was, do you believe that all non-white people should be attempting to become wealthy?
Yes, if you can. Well, by wealth, basically what we mean in the code is four things: having a roof over your head, Education, having a lot that's in your head. You got the roof over your head, but you need to have a whole lot in your head, as much as you can put in your head that is of constructive value, meaning know how to do things. Learn as many things of constructive value as you possibly can. If somebody's willing to show you that's constructive, okay? The roof over your head is one of the first things, real important, and going to become more and more important with these housing restrictions we have all over the world now.
It sure is.
And we have a huge, just finding a place to stay. That's what we call it. You know, it's old. It used to be an old slang. Black people don't have homes, ever. We just got places to stay for a while. You know?
Yeah.
Then we got to move. Okay? So having a roof over your head, very important. And having something in your head, education, that's the second one. I call it the big four. Number 3, health. Like a lot of people have called in and say that should be one of the 9 areas of activity, should be 10, and that's health. Well, that comes under economics. You know, economics means what? Time and energy. If you got time and you got energy, whole lot of energy and a whole lot of time, you are a healthy person. That's all it is. You're always energetic. You're not sick. You're not lying down. You're healthy. Time and energy. Energy is health. Okay? Having a head full of knowledge is health, because you want mental health too. And then the fourth one, rather, is transportation. Being able to move from one place to another with ease. With ease. All right? But black people are having problems in all 4 of these categories. Serious problems.
Yes.
Black people all over the world. A roof over your head, that's a serious problem. And keeping it there. And education. I mean, the knock-down, drag-out, just trying to learn something, and costing you all kinds of big money in many places. Got to travel for thousands of miles to try to learn something. And then your health, well, with many of us now, worse than ever. Worse, our health situation is worse than it was in slavery days. Because we were able to work off some of that poison. I mean, but we got a real health problem.
Yes, sir.
And transportation, getting from one place to another with ease.
With ease. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, concentrate on those 4 things, and you kind of got a head start on a lot of things. Just about everything else can fall in place. But
Absolutely.
2 things that you definitely want. Health, like the people say who call in a lot. And you need a place to go when the sun goes down. If you got those 2 things, you can just about make it otherwise.
All righty. To Son, thank you for your call and for being a loyal listener. That first part of when you answered his question, Mr. Fuller, made me think of something you said a long time ago and sometimes reiterate, which is racial relocation, and I find that to be true. Now, I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, okay. And I'll tell you this, and I've heard people ask you about health all the time. When I first became acquainted with you, mentioned about a 10th area about health, and then your answer has always been consistent, that you do speak about health all the time. And when I started to apply logic to what you had said, reading the 9 areas of activity, I realized that in all 9 areas, logically speaking, they all are related to health. Now, it took me a while to understand that, but logically, cause and effect, when I began to put it together and the constructive results in each of those 9 areas, I saw that it had an effect on my overall health, mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, economically, financially, whatever. It had an effect on that. So what I'm saying is that for the listeners, if you logically think about it, again, using cause and effect, you'll find that that health is included in all of the 9 areas that Mr.
In fact,
Fuller.
you're not healthy if any one of those 9 areas is defective. You don't have health.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Economics, time and energy, education, having a head full of knowledge about how to solve problems. That's all education really is. A head full of knowledge about every problem that you're confronted with, you can solve it. That's when you're educated. That's why I say there's no such thing as an educated person. Because I don't care who you are, you can invent the computer or whatever, but you will run into a problem that you don't know what to do about. Otherwise, you wouldn't even die, because you would know how things are connected that would keep you alive. You would live forever if you knew everything that you think you ought to know, or that you do know, or that you should know. So education is an ongoing thing, and that's healthy. Entertainment should be healthy. Sitting up there drinking vodka and gin and whatnot and thinking that's sophisticated because you're on a cruise, you ask yourself, this stuff that I'm drinking, what does this have to do with being on a cruise? I saw it in an ad. Oh, yeah. Okay. Does that answer the question? Does this have anything to do with health? Are you building your body up or tearing it down? Yes or no? Sitting at this fancy bar. You're not drinking the bar. You're not drinking all these chandeliers that are hanging over your head. You're drinking poison. That goes in your body. Okay? That's the way we should think all the time.
All the time, yes, sir.
To be healthy. And that applies to all the other areas of activity. Labor, law, religion, sex. Yes. Healthy in all these areas.
All righty. Listen, when you call in at this number, 516-453-9921, please, ma'am, please, sir, give the call screener your name so that I can give you the proper introduction in the remaining minutes that we have in the program. Okay, from the Gmails, Mr. Fuller, this is from Gigi saying this, Mr. Fuller, what do I do when a person's responses to my question does not match the question that I ask? And what do I do when people are allergic to questions, answers, truth, logic, and reasoning, and they only want to brag? What do I do?
You keep asking questions. And you ask questions about what they're doing or what their response is. For instance, the person is bragging, or you think that they're bragging. You can ask the person what? The logical question. Are you bragging? And then the next question after they answer that is, why are you bragging? And don't interfere with the answers. That's real important. Just be ready with the next question. And it will take everybody right where they should be. Questions and answers will always do that. That's code. That's what the code book is about. These are methods for always winding up where you should be. And through the process of questions and answers, all problems, no exceptions, whether you're on a boat or on the bottom of the ocean or in outer space, all problems, without exception, are solved through the process of questions and answers. Now, the answers may not take everybody where they want to be, but it'll take everybody where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
No exceptions to that.
Okay. All righty. Before we go to break here, let me get to Tucson. I don't know what country you're from, but this is the question. It says, Mr. Fuller, currently there are city and local elections in my country. What is the best action to take to counter the system of racism, white supremacy in such an event?
Such an event is what?
Election.
Elections?
Yeah.
If you see where you can get constructive results, you take part in the election. In most elections, you'll get a little bit of something, and there's an old saying, a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing.
Okay. Or anything to add to that, Mr. Fuller? I'm sorry.
Hello, I said.
Are you there? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Did everybody hear me? A little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. So you may get a little bit of something out of an election. Otherwise, you're going to get what you already have, which is most likely, if you're black, you'd like to have some more of something. So you do what you can as a prisoner of war. You don't have a lot of options. You use the ones that are presented to you. You may not get anything close to what you want, but why not try?
Why not try? Yes, sir. Let me do this. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com and also at producejustice.com. To get in contact with the show in the remaining 30 minutes, just call 516-453-9921. And be sure, if you have a question or comment, to press the number 1 button so you will get in line and I will know that that's you. And please, ma'am, please, sir, give your name to the call screener so I can properly introduce you. Now, chances are I'm going to mess your name up. I'm just telling you that in advance, not on purpose. But anyway, so I can give you an introduction and then Mr. Fuller can answer or address your question or concern. Please make it short. Please don't go all analytical about it. Just ask it and give Mr. Fuller a chance to answer because you know he will use logic to give you the answer, cause and effect, so that we're not confused. So please, ma'am, please, sir, do that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And we can do a little something with that. You can also go to the chat room. Just go to blogtalkradio.com. And you want to get the on shows, the Produce Justice Show, click on that bad boy, and then the chat room will come up. You press it, and you are in there. Man, you are in there. And if you want, when you get in there, you can also get a review of what we've been talking about sometime today, but definitely from last week, from Constructive Action Items has taken it upon to give us a review, which I greatly appreciate, of the show. And then you can become up to date on what's happening. So that's good. That's a contribution to producing justice. Way to go. Way to go. So you didn't even have to tell them. Didn't have to tell them. This is what they do. This is what they do. Rita 888, she gives books out of the concept. She has gone to producejustice.com and got books, which Mr. Fuller will talk about near the end of the program. And she has given them to several people. That is her contribution to producing justice to get a constructive result. Constructive result. So whatever you want to do, please do that. Okay, let me see here. Let's go to Raymond. Raymond in Georgia. Go ahead, Raymond.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Well, Yeah, this is some for BGQ or like maybe a question in the end. But I'm saying to the world and everybody that listening is that people know when to back down. People know when it's getting hostile. But I'll talk to you later. That's coded. It works. I'll talk to you later. And then my second thing is I take out the second and the third part of Mr. Fuller for what you want to do. I go like, what do you want to do? And then I jump straight to the last part. What is the constructive result? I want to know if that's any problem, but it works for me. It works for me just 1, 2. What do you want to do? What is the constructive result? And people tend to be like thinking back now, whatever they want to do or how they want to do it, they're like thinking back when you say what is the constructive result. So it does work. The code does work. Get coded, Mr. Bobby. Get coded.
All righty. All right. Thank you, sir. Your contribution there. Okay. Let's see. Now, I hope I don't mess this up because I have a friend by this name. Either it's Ike or Ike, and I might have messed that up. But anyway, in New Jersey, you're on with Mr. Fuller. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Ike, or how do you pronounce it?
Well, it's Isaac, but they Ike for short. I'm in Hackensack, New Jersey, and I'm an elderly citizen, and religion, of course, gospel, Jesus Christ covers everything. Everything that Mr. Fuller teaches is there in the Bible. You could find it there in the Bible. But there's one thing that puzzled me about one statement he made about hanging out with friends. I tried to find it in the politics section, but I couldn't nail it down. What is the negative thing about just hanging out? I know it's no good because I spent all my first 35 years of my life, out there. And it didn't do any good, friends and so on. So could you tell me where exactly in the politics section where you wrote about hanging out with friends, Reverend?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Okay.
I don't have that exact page. Now, so many pages. I've written so much, so I don't have that in my mind where that is. But it's in the textbook. But basically, all it is you don't make contact with people unless you have a constructive reason for doing so. That's any people. White, non-white, male, female. Always think. Now, I'm fixing to make a contact with this person. I'm willfully and deliberately making contact by phone or whatever. Like we have contacts now with these telephones we carry all day long. Is this going to produce a constructive result? This call I'm fixing to make. And how can I make it produce a constructive result? For me or for someone else or for everybody involved? Best for everybody involved. Try to think it through before you make the call. If you don't have a constructive reason for contacting anybody, including kin people, blood kin, you don't do it according to the code. Why?
Yes.
It's not logical. That's why. Every contact, when you hang up the phone or when you leave someone's habitat, their place of residence, you should be, basically, if you can, be walking on a cloud. Then that really was a productive visit. I mean, I helped somebody, or somebody helped me to clear up a matter that I hadn't had cleared up. In other words, 2 words, constructive results, or another 2 words, problem solving. That's explicit. Did we solve a problem? Or did we make a bigger problem? Or did we just waste time, which is a no-no? Either something is constructive
just think
or
about it. Think about the situation. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Okay. Hey, Ike, excuse me. I just looked in the Word guide. Hopefully you can get one of those if you haven't already purchased one. But what he just said is also on page 72 Under contact, he gives a
under contact
72, and then goes all the way into the next page on 73. And he has
thank you, Bobby.
notes
Bobby,
right
thank
there.
You.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you for your call. Appreciate that. All righty. All right, Mr. Fuller. Yep, you had that on in the word guide about contact.
Page 72.
Yeah, page 72 in the middle of it, right there.
Okay,
yeah, I'm looking at it right there.
I'll try to remember that or make a note of it or something.
Yeah, 72.
That's real important. That's real important.
Very important. 72, and then it goes over into 73, about half of that page full. So there's a lot of information there. Okay. Here we go. We go to Chris in Kansas. Okay, Chris, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Well, actually, it's a comment. Dr. Fuller, you talk about the system of white supremacy being the strongest religion on the planet. I noticed that people of color, no matter whether they are Muslims or Hindu or Christians, they always are looking for people who are classified as white for food, clothing, and shelter. They're not looking to go to their gods for food, clothing, and shelter. They're looking to go to the people who are classified as white for food, clothing, and shelter. And why is that?
That's what white supremacy means. It means we came under the strongest religion in the world. White supremacy is a religion. What is a religion? A strong belief backed up by action. That's any religion. It consists of those two things. You believe in it, and you act on what you believe. Millions of black people don't act on what they say they believe. The white supremacists do. They say, we believe in white supremacy. That's our religion. And they act on it. They plan it. Every detail. And they practice every detail. That's why they're successful.
Yes, sir.
A lot of black people just do the cosmetics. Anything that has to do with just being able to show off, basically our religions are show off. Showing off to whom? Other black people. Putting on a performance. Just like, show business. But when it comes to actually doing all of the things that their instruction books say that they're supposed to be doing each and every day in all areas of activity, because a really strong religion covers everything, not some things, everything. Economics, education, how you will be educated, how you entertain yourself and how you don't entertain yourself, labor, what kind of work you'll do, and what kind of work you outright are not going to do. You're not going to plant no opium and at the same time say that you're a Muslim. All right? But some do. So they ain't Muslims. I mean, if they got anything in their religion that says you don't do that, because that's harmful, if that's in their religion. I don't know whether it is or not. But I've heard that some people who call themselves that. See, so don't call yourself nothing that you're not doing. Nobody should do that in any area of activity. So a lot of people talk their religion, talk about it, argue about it, love that. Oh, yes. Love to talk about it. Win somebody in an argument about religion. A lot of people have that as their religion, being able to argue every verse in their holy books, argue about it, and win the argument because they know about every verse. But when it comes to practicing, right down to every letter, every T that's crossed, every I that's dotted, very few people, if any, do that, other than the white supremacists, because their religion is white supremacy. Supremacy. A strong belief backed up by action. We believe in mistreating people of color, and we do it. All right? We ain't playing. We do it, and we benefit from it. And that's why we're the most successful religion in recorded history. We practice what we preach.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fuller, wait a minute. Who is this here? Okay, Courtney has this question here. Courtney, I don't know how it came up, but they forwarded it to me. So anyway, here it is. Here's a question for you, Mr. Fuller. It says, could you ask Mr. Fuller to explain the scenario in which he states that, quote, white supremacists take both sides of every argument, end of quote. He mentions it in an old podcast, and I believe he said he didn't get to put it in the revised edition code book. Thank you in advance. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, it's not in the code book, I don't think. But they do. It may be in there. I mean, I've written so much. But it is either true or false. And I found out that it's true. And most people don't expect that. They're highly skilled at doing that. They know how to take every side of every argument. They'll go to a meeting, and they'll sit there and see which way you are going with what you're talking about. Next thing you know, they're agreeing with everything that you're saying. And then you become enamored of them. See, that's it. That's the key. You say, see, this white man, this white woman, she agrees with me. All right? Say, now, I know y'all go, hey, when white folks say that, hey, they're in agreement with you, that means you know something. You own to something. All right? And now you're important. Okay? So y'all want to be important, don't you? Now, I said something. You disagree with me. But when this white person agreed with me, now you want to hear what I got to say. And the white supremacists export that to the hill for their advantage. But see, here's what. They'll pick out the side that's most advantageous to them, and somewhere along the way, they'll dump that part of whatever you were talking about that's not to an advantage for them. And you're right back where you started from. That's why I say they know how to have a conversation that will work in their favor, regardless of which way that conversation is going. Because they are masters of words. 6 months later, they'll say, oh, that's what I said, but that's not what I meant. So I'll explain to you. You got it all wrong, fella. I mean, that's not your fault. Evidently, I didn't explain to you in the way that you understood. But now let me make it simple for you. And they take it, and even then, they're making it more complicated. But it sounded like they cleared it up. They're word masters.
Yes.
They turn black people upside down, inside out all the time, just with words.
All righty.
Smile going along with it. Hey, it's a cinch.
Okay. In the area of entertainment, thank you, Mr. Fuller. In the area of entertainment, I guess hopefully there's a jam session going on in a bar in Omaha, Jacoby 2 Kane 2. Man, I wish I was there. I would go, but just thought I would put that out there for those of you who are in the Omaha, Nebraska area. They're going to be getting down. Yeah, and I'm an avid lover of the jazz myself. Anyway, here's a question from my boy down in Alabama, I believe it is, Teddy Theodore. Says this, Mr. Fuller, are there individuals who could or would be identified as, quote, white race traitors, end of quote, within the system of white supremacy racism? Thank you for selecting my question.
Are there white people who are against racism?
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me see. Are there individuals who could or would be identified as white traitors, and then he had race, parentheses, traitors, within the system of white supremacy racism?
I guess so, but you have to define traitor to whom.
Now I'm just going to assume
for
this.
Some questions for clarity.
Yeah. Now
traitor to the system of white supremacy is just what's
that's
implied?
What I think he's getting at. Yes.
Well, presumably yes. But it's a matter of are they or are they pretending to be?
Yeah. Okay.
See, because the chief weapon of a white supremacist, if they're sophisticated enough, is, and even some that are not sophisticated, is deception.
Yes, sir.
So you don't really know. So sometimes, there are a lot of white people who say that I'm against racism. Well, the code is very blunt about that, and very direct, and very logical. The compensatory counter-racist code, which is what I subscribe to. And that is, I only know it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
See, the white person who says they're against racism, I only know it when racism doesn't exist. That's the only test. There's no other test. Otherwise, a white person say they're doing their best, they're trying to end racism. But the question, according to the code, is always, is it ended?
Mm-hmm.
You can talk to me when it is.
Yes.
Okay. Just wake me up if I'm asleep and say, hey, you ain't got nothing to worry about from here on in. Racism ended last night as of 1:32 a.m.
Okay. Mr. Aaron Duncan. Thank you, Mr. Aaron Duncan. Had this question. He sent me a YouTube video, but he was basically saying in this video, Mr. Fuller, that, and he said this. He said that, get into this, that people in the quote-unquote upper class, this particular individual lady said, in the upper class, you can't discuss race. And then the question mark, why? Then he says, Mr. Fuller, how do elites perpetuate the schemes discussed surrounding racism?
How do you what now?
Perpetuate the schemes surrounding or discussed surrounding racism. How do they do that? Go ahead. Yeah, how do you...
They just do it. They just say, the person, the caller says that that's what they do. They do it by just doing it. Now, the question may be, what do you do about it? Now, that's where the code comes in. You don't discuss racism with anybody that doesn't want to discuss racism. But you always, if you're going to talk about people, talk about justice. That's always, no exceptions in any circumstance. If it involves people, you always talk about justice, but you always make it clear of what justice is. Justice has two parts, according to the code. This is one that I made up. I didn't like the dictionary definition of justice, none of them. It wasn't because I just didn't like them. It's because they were confusing. So I made up one years ago, and I think it'll stand the test of time. Consists of two parts. Justice, what is it? One, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated in any area of activity, any time of day or night, anywhere in or out of the universe. No person is mistreated. That's number one. Number two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's it. That's justice. No other definition, logically speaking. And so that's what you talk about. Persons say, I don't want to talk about racism. A lot of black people say they don't want to talk about it. Don't talk about things to people when they have let you know they don't want to talk about it. Then find out what they do want to talk about. It'll always lead, if it involves people, to the question of, is somebody being mistreated? Or is everybody getting the help that they need, that needs it? And the person that needs it the most is getting it first? That's the question, if it deals with people. Because almost anything about people that involves people. Because what? It involves people. So if it involves people, you're talking about justice. So if you talk about justice, it'll always lead to the race issue anyway. Okay. Because the biggest obstacle to justice is racism.
Is racism. Okay. All righty. Black Tony says this, Mr. Bobby, can you have Mr. Fuller explain his stance on the pledge of a flag?
Yes. Of any flag, you can take a pledge. Any pledge to any flag, anywhere, wherever you are on the planet. In fact, if the flag is buried up under the ground, you still take the pledge. And the pledge is the compensatory pledge, universal flag pledge. That's why it's called universal. It applies anywhere to any flag, at any time, day or night, under any circumstance. It's one that you can take, and you'll be correct when you do it. Always correct. It won't be out of place. This is it as follows. I do at all times, underline all times, I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. When you say that, you'll always be telling the truth about that flag and you, because you're the one taking the pledge. You'll always be telling the truth. And it can't be challenged in a logical way. It can't be. I do at all times. And it's in the textbook called the Universal Pledge. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. And now I say at all times. Let's take Neely Fuller as an example. I'm sitting here talking on telephone, but I'm relating to every flag on the planet the exact same way that that flag relates to me. And I'm taking a pledge to him because it's true. That's the one thing that's true. It's better than any pledge that anybody will ever come up with, in my opinion. I dreamed that one up when somebody asked me about whether or not you should take the pledge to the flag. And I said, well, that's problematic, and evidently it's a problem because the person was presenting it to me. It took me about 2 years to come up with that. It's short, right to the point, which is what I try to make most things in the code. I'm not very good at that.
Yes, sir.
But that's one. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me.
So when
now,
a person
people are going to have some questions after that,
yeah,
and you're ready with the question.
They sure are, because
now, what's the logical question?
One of the things that come up, well, you didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance of this flag.
Oh, they said that?
Yeah.
Yes, I just did. I relate to that flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. It doesn't get no better than that. I don't care what kind of flag it is. Even if I'm not even looking at the flag, like I'm not looking at these flags now. All the flags that people are making in every factory, I'm relating to all of them flags, the way that those flags relate to me right this minute. And I can testify to that in any court under law and be telling the truth.
And be telling the truth.
Yeah, one size fits all. That's why I gave it that title, the Universal Flag Pledge.
The Universal Pledge.
It's foolproof. It is absolutely foolproof. Anybody who challenges that is going to wind up tying themselves in knots. That's a guarantee. You're getting it from me.
All right.
And think about it. If you do it, I mean, who's going to challenge it? And how are they going to challenge it? Now, I know some ways that they will do it, and I've given an illustration on this air before. First thing, if they think about it after maybe a month or maybe in 2 minutes, they'll say, okay, wise guy, how does the flag relate to you? And I say the same thing right over again. But now they, say something different, all right? If they make a demand, like the president of some country or something, no, say something different from what you just told me. That's silly. I don't want to hear that silly talk. And so he'll ask me to say something else, or he might ask a question, or she. How does the flag relate to you? That's a logical question. So I got to be ready with an answer. And my answer is, I told you, but since you want me to say something different to that same question, I will say, I don't know. But I'll ask, do you want me to make a suggestion? And if they say yes, I say, you can ask the flag. You want to know how the flag relates to me and you don't want to take my word for it, ask the flag. I mean, y'all can get real chummy. I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Well, speaking about out of here, we got about a minute to go, so let's do this. Let's have you speak very briefly about your book, and then we're going to go for the wrap. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And this business about the flag, it's all in there. I think in the Word Guide it might be in there, too. Just look on the Universal Flag Pledge or something like that, or Compensatory Flag Pledge, and it's in there. And if you do it, that's the best way to test it. I mean, go anywhere, go football, classroom, and just give that pledge. And you're always on solid ground.
Always. Yes, sir.
You'll find that out just by doing it.
Yes, sir. Well, my good people, chatters.
And you get to producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com.
To get the book.
Well, we've come to an end of another program. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, chatters. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, people in the technical department that helped Mr. Fuller and myself sound as good as we did. Any mistakes that I made today, hey, forgive me. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better, and the only way to get better is to be better. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Last word, Mr. Fuller, for you.
Inferior people, I started off the program saying something like that. How do you respond to that when people talk about people being inferior? You say, what do you do? What do you do about an inferior person? You practice justice. That's it. 2 words. Practice justice.
Practice justice.
Yeah.
And you will get a constructive result.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuller, thank you. Callers again,
right.
Thank you. Technical people, thank you. Everybody have a good week, and we hope to see you next week. And don't forget, producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.